Welcome everyone to Quad Education's webinar on getting into an Ivy League school. My name is Hallie Caldwell. I'm a member of the Quad Education team, and I have two of our fantastic consultants with us today who are going to walk you through all the inside secrets, but just also basic facts and information on what Ivy League schools mean, what it takes to get into them, and how you can start preparing yourself. Quad Education is an admissions consulting company, and we help students prepare themselves for college, from deciding what classes to take in high school, what clubs to join, helping with SAT, ACT prep, essay writing, the entirety of the college application, all the way through actually being accepted into the college that you want to go to. All right, so today, we're going to introduce our two fantastic panelists. We'll talk about what sets Ivy League schools apart from others, what they expect from their applicants. We'll talk about how to approach your application strategy if you decide to apply to an Ivy League, steps to demonstrating your academic excellence, choosing activities to help boost your application. We'll go over some tips and tricks, and then we'll open things up for a Q&A. So as we go through this, if you have questions, definitely pop them in the Q&A box and we will get to those at the end. We'll also be recording this webinar and sending it out to everyone within the next 2-3 days, so you can have access to all the information that we cover as well. So we have Jennifer White and Arianna Lee with us today. Jennifer, can you introduce yourself?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer White. I am an admissions consultant here with Quad and also a graduate and a proud alum of Harvard, where I got my degree in English and East Asian Studies. I worked at the university for a few years as a research assistant prior to going on to graduate school in Tokyo, Japan, where I studied under a grant from the Japanese Ministry of Education. And then since that time, I was directing study abroad programs at a number of private, highly selective universities and colleges across the US, and working with Fulbright program applicants and the like prior to beginning my work in selective college admissions. So delighted to be with you today.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. It's always a pleasure to have you. Arianna, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Awesome. I'm Arianna Lee. I graduated from Dartmouth in 2017 with a degree in neuroscience. I was pre-med then, doing, all the science fun STEM research there. I went on to help with admissions consulting in the admissions office at Dartmouth, as well as Questbridge and other college mentoring companies and applications, helping many students with their applications, as well as apply to top scholarships. That's a little bit about me, but I often get the question, how do I apply to an Ivy League? What does that look like? All those fun, exciting questions. Happy to help today.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here as well. All right, so let's start with what sets Ivy League schools apart from other colleges and universities. Arianna, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. So Ivy League schools, they're some of the oldest schools in the nation. They're known for their exclusivity, their selectivity, as seen through their competitive admissions rates. And they consistently rank among the top 20 universities in the world. They are Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Dartmouth, Columbia, Cornell, and UPenn. And the reason these schools are so awesome is because a lot of their alumni constantly pours into them as well. So they have very great networking, great networks, great opportunities, and great research opportunities as well. I'm going to pass it off to Jennifer to go over the acceptance rates.
So here we have an overview of just how highly selective these institutions are. Sometimes I sit and wonder, could I get into Harvard today? I'm not really sure, because as we'll be talking about today, the portfolio really that you need to bring to these institutions as a high school senior is just so heavy on intellectual rigor and research experience and all of the things that would really distinguish you as an applicant. And it's even among those applicants, very highly competitive. So just to go through a couple of quick stats, I won't read everything for you, but for Harvard, 61,000 applications, 1,200 students accepted. Do quick math calculation there, and we've got an acceptance rate of just over 3% for the most selective applicant strategy among the Ivy League. And then if you look at Columbia, similarly, 60,000, 2,200 accepted, 3.7. Brown is at 5% admission rate. And Cornell's were not weren't available to us, but Cornell is historically seen as one of the quote unquote easier Ivy League institutions to get into, depending on the school and depending on the major that you're applying for. Some of my students have had success in some of the auxiliary colleges, not just in the College of Arts and Sciences. And you can sometimes see acceptance rates there in the double digits as compared to these very low percentages that we're seeing here on this table.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of going to an Ivy League.
Awesome. And kind of like what we mentioned earlier as well, the world-class education, right? I'm sure Jennifer can attest to this, the amazing opportunities that are available at many institutions, but in particular Ivies. Them being a place among the top 20 institutions allows them this opportunity to just excellent resources. For example, the study abroad programs, the research opportunities. You have a lot of professors that come back and teach at these universities that have gone on to be great leaders in their industries. So we're getting this connection to just top knowledge available. Therefore, it opens the doors to the networking opportunities that we were talking about as well. Again, a lot of the aid and the financial residuals come from the alumni. So they have to constantly feed into the resources that are available to the students. So that's what makes it so great, the networking opportunities. And again, the career and salary, because it's so much so much fed into as far as the top industry leaders and all of that, it makes it great when you graduate from an Ivy League school. It does show potential career employers that you are able to succeed at this type of institution. Therefore, they're going to kind of bump up your pay, or maybe where you're starting at. I don't know. Maybe Jennifer, you want to add to that as well?
Sure. A lot of what I've learned over the course of my career, and certainly my own experience as a student, is that saying that we hear sometimes, it says it's not just what you know, it's who you know. And so, you know, my parents were elementary school teachers. They were first generation students at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'm forever grateful to that institution because that's where my parents met. Yay! That was our family. Nobody was like, yeah, let's shoot for the moon here. But I just, it worked out for me. Going to the schools that I did that really emphasized college prep and the sacrifices that my parents made to get me there. But when I got there, I was sort of like dazed and confused for a while because it was such a different environment from what I was used to. And then I had to kind of grow into that environment. I think one of the big things that, like a piece of advice that I have from my personal experience is that, you know, in order to be seen as a competitive applicant at these institutions, you've got to be at or near the top of your high school graduating class. And therefore, if that describes you or your son or daughter, for those of you that are here on the call today, you know, you're used to kind of acing things or figuring out, you know, how to shine and how to be at your best. And you've been like the big fish in a smaller pond, and then you go to this ocean where you're like, I don't even know if I'm a fish anymore. I mean, I might be a bird. I don't know if I belong here. So you have to be up for that piece of the transition. And I think that's what sometimes students lose sight of and can really hit hard, especially in the freshman year when you're trying to make that adjustment and that pivot. So that's a word of advice. And then I will also say that from my personal experience, like my professors, I got to know them much better when I was working as a research assistant after I got my degree. But when they wrote me a letter of reference, that letter of reference was worth what I paid in the tuition and the student loans that I took out to go to that school, because that their connections really opened connections for me in ways that I never could have dreamed about before I was able to take advantage of that education. So I just want to kind of share a little bit of those personal experiences, as well as definitely the alumni network that it puts you in touch with. You know, there's a club for each Ivy League school in all the big cities, and you get to know people who graduated 20 years before you or 20 years after you, and you get to know the positions that they hold, and really build your network. It's a really valuable resource.
Absolutely. And just to add quickly on that as well, it hasn't been a company that I've gone to, or even when looking for, let's say, employment, you can look at the alumni and see just how strong it is. Whether any Ivy, there might be someone there or someone who knows someone there that can get you in the door. And just getting in the door is a huge, you know, it's a huge advantage to a lot of people, just being able to have that opportunity. So I will say that was a huge benefit when just that Ivy League college can have. But again, I do want to emphasize that every school does have, you can make it anywhere, but again, Ivy Leagues do allow that additional opportunity.
Fantastic. Jennifer, thank you for that, that advice. I think it's really important and something that is not talked about enough. And Arianna, I also appreciate you bringing up that you can get a lot of this at hundreds of different schools. The Ivy, the name recognition, and the strength of the alumni definitely make it easier. Yeah. But if you don't get into an Ivy, or you decide not to apply to one, you're still going to get a fantastic education. You will still have networking opportunities and resources. It's about making your experience the best, and it is available at a lot of different places.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do Ivy League schools expect from applicants?
Right. So obviously, Ivies are highly selective and can be for the reasons that we've been outlining. And almost all the students that are accepted into the schools that we've been talking about are in the top 5, if not the top 10% of their class. And it's not just that you've gotten good grades. And I have these conversations with my students all the time. It's a balancing act, because you have to show that you have taken some risks. And if you're like me, when I was a high school student, I was very risk averse. I just wanted to do good. I wanted my A's. I liked my A's. And then I met Calculus AP BC. And I was not gifted in math, but I took the risk. And that was an interesting season, because I was really, really stretching and challenging myself. And I was going over to my math teacher's house on the weekends to just try to get these concepts that were so challenging for me. And so then when I got the grade that I did in that course, I could be extra proud of myself, because I'd really pushed myself in an area that didn't come naturally to me. If you can do that as you're working through your high school years, you're going to have a really compelling narrative to share when you're writing your college applications. There's a lot of schools ask for, tell us about a time that you've overcome a challenge. Tell us a time that you've overcome a hardship. And you might have one from your personal life that you want to share. You might be able to share one from your academic journey if you've pushed yourself to, consider an IB school, to take as many A levels as you can, to be in as many AP courses as you can successfully pull off. But then you don't want to push yourself so hard that your GPA is going to drop. So that's something that you have to work out with your college counselor, with your teachers at your school, with your guidance counselor at your school, to figure out like what is going to be the best pathway for you to show both academic achievement and that you've taken these risks and you've taken on extra challenges that show that you're up to the rigor of the academic coursework that's going to be expected from you at an Ivy League institution. SAT scores range from between 1420 to 1570, but I will say that most students that I work with, we really strongly suggest that you're in the very upper range of that, or that you're above that 1570 level. Because if you're not a legacy of the school, a recruited athlete, the international flute awardee of the world, like there's a limited number of spaces for those lower SAT scores in each entering class. So don't look at that and say to yourself, well, 1450 is going to be fine for me to get in. Unless you have really compelling other aspects to your portfolio, it's not going to be that way. And that holds true across the institutions that we've talked about. ACT scores range from 32 to 36, but most competitive applicants have a 34, 35, or 36.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I would say don't go for all the layups. That's what we used to call the easy classes. Try, like Jennifer said, try and challenge yourself, even if it seems like, hey, and again, your own bandwidth. If you can't add an additional AP class or additional IB or whatever the case is, then that's something that but at least try to push yourself to that goal.
Great advice.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Arianna.
Okay, so letters of recommendation, very important. Like Jennifer said, as far as the other compelling parts of your application, that's going to make you stand out. Letters of recommendation is definitely a huge portion of that. Getting a teacher, supervisor, someone who knows the performance that you typically do, knows how the blood, sweat, and tears that you spent on the project that you've been working on. Someone who can really speak to your character and your level of discipline and dedication. That's who you want to get that letter of recommendation from. Not some superficial, I just started working this internship, let me ask for a letter of recommendation. Get something of quality. That's going to really help you stand out amongst the crowd. And again, you can't ask what is going to be in your letter of recommendation, but you should know if you weren't performing well in a particular class or you've been a class clown, maybe that's not a teacher you ask a letter of recommendation from. Hopefully that's not the case for anyone that's, in the audience.
Exactly. I agree.
And we do have an entire webinar on letters of recommendation that you can go back and watch on our website. One question I will say we get a lot is some students have connected really well with a teacher from middle school that they knows them really well and want to know if they can use that teacher from middle school as their recommender. And you definitely want someone from your high school classes to do that. So definitely make an effort to get to know your teachers, especially the ones whose classes you excel in and have brought out your best qualities.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely want someone from 10th or 11th grade. And ideally, some of the best letters I've worked with students on have been for a teacher who might have taught you in 10th grade, even in 9th grade, but preferably 10th grade, and then been an advisor of a club or an activity that you're a part of. And so they've seen you in and outside of the classroom, and then they can really write a holistic assessment. And each teacher is going to have their own preferences for how you communicate with them. But I always encourage my students to share a draft once it's polished of their application essay so that the teacher has a little bit more to go on in writing their letter for you. And some teachers even have like a whole, like they have a form and this whole online thing that you do. And some are more casual about it, but the more information you can provide to your teacher about who you are outside of their class, if they don't already know you in that capacity, it'll really help them to write a compelling letter.
Absolutely. Personal
And speaking
essays.
of compelling things, we have to write compelling essays. This is one of the most fun parts for me of the work that I get to do here at Quad, because I get to, start with the outlining and brainstorming process with my students, and then help them, work on the draft and then polish the draft. And I'm a big polisher, and I always tell my students, like, when you're done having me edit your stuff, just tell me, like, it's enough, it's good enough. But it really is, it's important that it's in your voice. Obviously, we always maintain that approach, but it's also a different kind of writing than you've ever done before. I mean, who sits down and writes 650 words about themselves to share with a bunch of people that you've never met before? Welcome to the Common App personal statement. And in my case, when I was writing this back in the day, I had a really fun story that I decided to share, because you're going to write all your academic stuff and your really compelling research things, and all of that's going to go in the school specific supplemental essays. But your personal essay for the Common App is a chance to share about who you are and to show, not tell, right? So we work with you to get that kind of language down. In my case, I was working my way through high school because I was going to a private school. My parents were taking out loans. I was helping out where I could with the finances. And so I was working at our family dentist's office like 3 days a week after school. I would take the bus down there, work for 4 hours, and then go home and do my homework. And one day, the dentist's assistant quit. Like, I was sitting there answering phones, patients, and the person walked out the door, and he comes to me and he says, Jennifer, I need you to come back here and hand me tools so I can finish this woman's cavity filling. I'm like, what? And so there I was, like, on the job, absolutely thrown into the deep end of the pool, having to be like in front of the patient. I've done this a million times before. And I wrote about that for Harvard and all the other schools I applied to. And 2 years later, I met one of the admissions reps who had read my essay, and they're like, I remember you. You wrote about being a dentist for a couple of weeks, right when you were like 16 or 17. That was crazy. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I can't believe they remember that from all the admissions essays that they've read. So you want to find something that is going to stick in someone's head and really reflect, like, whatever you want to show, but think about some really fun stories that are going to be unique to you that you can work on with your college counselor here at Quad and make the best portrait of yourself through those words.
That's a truly amazing story, and sounds like it was a great essay.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, and I like that yours, and again, every personal essay does not have to be, some people think personal essays, it should be sad, or it should be, it can be as lighthearted, as fun as, it's about you. So if it's the why is this important for you to tell? What is your story? How did you become who you are right now? It does not have to be sad or this extreme event that happened in your life. It can be, I just want to make sure everyone knows that, because some people are under that impression. I just love Jennifer's story is lighthearted and it's fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great advice. We also have a webinar on that. And so we go into a lot of detail about kind of cliche topics, common topics, how to spin topics to be unique that maybe aren't completely unique experiences, but coming from you and your experience and voice, you can make it unique. But something we do here a lot is we want to make sure people know you don't have to. Doesn't need to be a sad story. You don't need to make anyone cry to have a good essay.
Awesome. Activities, extracurriculars. So this is where you kind of figure out what is meaningful, why am I doing any of the things that I am doing currently? So that's when you want to look through what extracurriculars are you naturally guided to? What are things that you're already doing, things that maybe align with future interests or future career path that you're planning to do? The biggest thing that admissions officers are looking for is, again, that why. Why did you spend this time doing this? So you want to ensure that you're focused on activities that truly matter to you. This will come across when you're writing about it in your application. Maybe that's something that you're writing about in your personal essay, but you don't want to do things because you think that this is what an admissions officer is going to like from you. It will become very obvious when, it's just peppered with a bunch of different extracurriculars that you have really no passion about or interest in. So really try and see what are the activities that really are important to you. Do you have a mentor or anyone there that can truly speak to the dedication that you've been putting in these extracurriculars and activities? It does not have to be 15 different extracurriculars and activities. It can be 2 or 3 really meaningful ones to you. There is no right and wrong list because every student is going to be different and every student is going to have their own passions. Okay, so the biggest thing though is explaining why you chose to become a Civil War enactment mod, or whatever you choose to do. You want to figure out, why is this important?
Yep. And a great strategy for articulating that, because you might know it inside, or you might just never have thought about it. Like, why do I do that? I don't know. Like, people ask me all the time, why do you play the harp? I don't know. I fell into it and then I loved it, but something grabbed me about it in the beginning. So you can ask yourself a really quick little question, just so what? Okay, so I'm captain of the this, or I'm volunteering at the that, and you're explaining yourself in your 1-minute elevator pitch. And then imagine someone talking to you and being like, okay, well, why should I care? Like, why should they care? And figure out how to articulate that. That can be really helpful. And the days of being a well-rounded student, those are over and gone. Admissions officers are looking to build a well-rounded class full of very pointy, angular students with a single 1 or 2 activities that they've really spent a lot of time and effort, developed leadership in. And this whole process involves so much art in addition to the science. Like, you might be accepted at Yale this year, and you might not be accepted at Yale next year because you're an amazing tuba player. And this year Yale needed you, and next year they found somebody else already. Like, it gets down to certain, you've made it through all of the review processes that we've been talking about with the academic achievements and all of that. And now these activities and extracurriculars are your chance to show how you're going to shine and be unique and contribute into the life of the campus. And like Arianna was saying, it has to be authentic. If you find yourself asking, which one of these would a college like better? You need to stop, drop, and roll, because you're just not asking the right question. You have to lead from the inside and have it be an authentic activity or intellectual pursuit that you're engaged in.
I really like that way of thinking about it.
Absolutely.
All right. So how to approach your application strategy?
You'll notice a couple of times on this slide, there's a key word. What is it? Early. We want you to be planning early. I have middle school clients. If you and I'm thinking, okay, wow, good for you for thinking about college at all. But they're really starting to think that young. It's not ever too early to start planning. And you really want to be thinking, if you're a rising senior right now, you are tuning in at an ideal moment, because one of the worst things you can do, in my opinion, is put off thinking about college lists, college applications until, oh, the Common App is open in August. Yay, now I'll work on it. Well, and then in 3 weeks, you're back in school, and then it's senior fall, and I have to pick an early application deadline school, whether it's restrictive early action or early decision, the early action schools, whatever your November application strategies are, you need to not be working on those in a crash course in October, because you've got your midterms at that point for your senior year. And you've got to be maintaining really strong academics as well. So we love that you start working with someone here on our team early, so that you can start thinking about, well, what do I really enjoy doing? Where do I want to focus my time and effort? What academics do I want to engage more deeply with, and kind of have this strategy going into the whole process, so you're not just, what do I do? There's a deadline coming up, I'm not sure what I want to do. We already talked about the challenging yourself piece, having that balance between school life and outside of school life and extracurriculars, but in all of those areas, be encouraging yourself to work at your highest potential. I think I could be doing a little more of this. That might mean I have to get off social media a little bit more than I am right now, and then, okay, now school's taken care of and I've got some time for fun and I'm going to switch gears. You want to be approaching this from that kind of a mindset where you're balancing between these different areas, but you're always thinking, what could I be doing more? And am I really working to my full potential in this area? And then, yes, early application, we're going to be really encouraging you to take advantage of the bump that early decision gives you in making that choice. And I strongly urge students and families to get to those campuses prior to making that commitment. You might wait on your regular decision schools. You don't have to go see everything. Everything's going to become a blur if you try to go see, 15 colleges in a month. You're going to be like, what was that? What just happened? But narrow it down with your counselor to your top candidates for your early application deadlines. And before you make that binding commitment that says, if I get into this school, I'm going to go to this school, and that's the contract that gets made in early decision, you want to have really gotten there when there's students there, when there's faculty there, whatever you need to do to make that happen. If it's at all possible for you to do that, is going to be really worth your time, because it can really impact your decision. And it's hard to make a promise to attend someplace that you haven't had the chance to visit in person yet.
Very true. And like you had said earlier, this process is so unique, so different. To come up with, like you said, a story, 650 words telling strangers everything about you, or a very personal story about you, that takes time. So you want to start as early as possible to kind of craft the theme where, introspective look into your life, and go through that process with your counselor. As much time as possible would be helpful. Of course, if you're a procrastinator, which is not advised, still take the time now to make that, to start working on your application.
Absolutely. And I think this applies to all of your college applications, not just Ivy League school. It's a great thing to start thinking about early, and saves you, your parents, your family, mainly you though, a lot of stress later on, and makes it much easier for you.
Definitely.
So more on the application strategy.
Absolutely. Again, thorough research. It does not hurt to learn as much as you can about the schools that you're interested in. Regardless of whether it's the Ivy, whether it's different Ivy schools that you're looking at, or schools outside of the Ivy League, each school has its own vibe, a personality, mission statement, location, different things that make it unique. Learn as much as you can about why that aligns with yourself, how you can fit into this campus, fit into the potential future class of this university. What about this university stuck out to you for you to even apply to it? You want to kind of craft that and determine that as early as possible as well. So doing thorough research, whether that's creating an Excel document and putting out the three best things about the university, or things that stuck out about it to you, I would say to do that. Be intentional with your coursework and activities. So again, you don't want to just add every extracurricular to your plate, because that's not going to come off of that genuine, unless you are genuinely interested in that many different things, which in that case, more power to you. But again, save yourself some time, stress, and energy, and try to narrow that down. Be intentional about your coursework. So try to push yourself, but also be realistic with yourself as well. So if you are struggling within multiple top or multiple classes, maybe that's time for you to kind of assess and figure out what classes you're going to keep on your course load plate. So that way you can still maintain that high GPA and have chances for schools that you're interested in. And be involved and figure out, again, write out why you chose to do the activities that you did and maybe why you chose to do the classes that you did as well. So writing that out is important. And then also building that cohesive narrative. So starting as early as possible, you can work with a quad counselor and kind of figure out what part of your narrative you're going to highlight. So that way it's aligning to that school's mission statement and values.
Fantastic. All right, so demonstrating your academic excellence.
So
And
we've
this
been
is something.
talking.
Oh, yep. I think you're going to say what I was going to say.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this a bit throughout the presentation. So I'm just going to really quickly highlight it because we want to make sure to leave time for questions and Q&A at the end. But you definitely want to, be mindful of your grades and be developing that framework and seek extra support when you need it. Like I told that story about going over to my math teacher's house. That wasn't exactly how I wanted to spend my Saturday afternoons or how she wanted to spend her Saturday afternoons either, but she was willing to do it. And I drove the half an hour over there, got a ride when I didn't have access to the family car, and made it happen because it was important to me. So whatever extra supports are going to be helpful for you, there's so much online that you can do. There's all kinds of additional self-study tools. If you're in an area where you're needing a little bit of extra support, seek that out. You want to be pursuing your interests with your electives in particular. You've got to do your cores, you get your cores done, but where you have the opportunity to choose an advanced course in an area that you're leaning towards, do that, right? Should I take AP Chem or should I take AP English if I've only got the ability to do one or the other and I'm forced into a choice position? Well, that answer is not going to be standardized. It's going to be, are you tracking for humanities or are you tracking for STEM? That's important to kind of assess your final goal and work backwards, kind of reverse engineer it. And then just apply yourself and make sure that you're, like I said before, working to your highest potential.
All right, so tips, we'll go over some tips about getting into Ivy Leagues, and then we will move on to a Q&A. So definitely start adding your questions into the Q&A box.
Awesome. So just to kind of recap some tips to helping keep that strong application or build a strong application for any college, but in particular Ivies. Practice authenticity. You can only be as you can be. Okay, so really just make sure that you're coming across authentic. You're not trying to, again, appease to this imaginary admissions officer that's going to review your application. Really kind of think and brainstorm on themes with your quad counselor, ideas, events that may have helped shape who you are or people that help shape who you are. Work hard, stay focused. So again, classes, it's important to keep up your GPA. Even after you get accepted to a school, please do not slack off and think, oh, I'm good, I don't have to go anymore. Still work hard, stay focused throughout. They check those grades. Make meaningful connections and nurture relationships. So the teachers, mentors, program directors, whoever you're involved with, whoever you come across, always, of course, treat them with respect, but make sure that you're building those genuine connections. You never know who you're going to need, so always make sure to keep that connection strong. Show your passions as well. It's important to exhibit this through your application. There are many spots to exhibit this. Hallie gave multiple webinars that you can review that will help showcase your passion through the personal essay or through letters of recommendation. Be honest and talk about your challenges. This is a great opportunity to, again, be authentic, focus this on the personal essay and throughout your application, showing who you are and showing why it is important for this university to open a spot, place you there for their future class. So make sure you show that, okay? Any other thing to add? Sorry, I try not to talk too fast.
There's just one thing I want to circle back to, because I really appreciate the point, Arianna, that you made earlier in the presentation about how, we were talking about alumni networks and all the resources that the Ivy League can provide. And you had mentioned that, many schools offer that, and you can find that wherever you end up and really be able to excel. I also just want to encourage you that if you're planning to go to graduate school, say your track is for law or for medicine, and you know that you're going to be going on for a graduate program, you want to get a PhD, think about that end goal too, because if you think about it, Columbia's PhD program in history does not take the entire graduating class of history majors from Columbia, right? They want diversity in their graduate students, just like the university at the undergraduate level wants diversity in their entering first year class. So you can set your sights high. We work on your high reach schools and your reach schools with you just as hard as we work on your target schools with you on your list. And if you get into them, we have a huge celebration. And if you don't, you can still know that you can achieve really excellent academic results at whatever institution you end up at for your undergraduate years and still be competitive for that graduate school that you have your sights set on.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Definitely a great thing to think about and something not a lot of people do think about. All right, so we'll open things up for Q&A now and start answering those. I will say off the bat that we do get people who ask questions about that are very specific to them, their grades and experiences. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time here or enough information about you to give you accurate answers on what combination of scores and GPA you need if you are in a certain school trying to get into a certain school. And that's a great opportunity for you to schedule a consultation with our team, and we can figure out how we can help you best in your unique circumstance. But we will dive in here and see. Let's start with, this is a good one. So if you go to, like, is it realistic for you to apply to an Ivy if you go to a prestigious private school known for academic rigor, have all A's, but only a few honors classes, but everything else is on par, testing and extracurricular? And I think the main part of the question here is, if you go to a harder school versus an easier school, if you have APs or don't have APs available to you, how much of that is taken into account by your application, the application counselor looking at your application? Arianna or Jennifer, do either of you have any thoughts on that?
They're asking if going to a hard high school or a harder, more prestigious high school. Yeah, I think the academic rigor is assessed. It is, of course, differentiated from school to school. Some schools don't offer IBs, some do. Some offer APs, some don't. Some offer college courses, like where you can actually dual enroll, and some don't. So I think it depends. Does that help if you go to a school that is harder or offer more rigorous classes and you're taking them? Then that helps. But if you are not, again, pushing yourself to your limit, then that is just as we talked about before, that is looked at as, why didn't you take these other classes that were more difficult? What was your reasoning?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I would say too, for those students who might not have a certain kind of curriculum that we're talking about today that's offered at your school, there are a number of students that I've worked with who have self-studied for the AP. And there are outside resources that you can engage in, low cost, medium cost, all the way up. but you are able to, the year that you're doing chemistry in school, okay, it's not offered at the AP level. My school doesn't do AP exams, but you can talk with your college guidance counselor, talk with your quad counselor about how to arrange to sit an AP exam independently of the fact that your school does not offer it. And I've had students do that for 9, 10, 11 AP exams. So it's definitely possible for you to make that happen for yourself. I would say that, admissions officers have established relationships at schools, and they know your school. The AO who's working with your territory, your region, is going to know your school's curriculum as well as you do. They will have reviewed hundreds of applications from your school over time, and so they're able to pretty quickly assess, okay, yep, I can see that this student's working at the top of the rigor of the curriculum, the students in the middle. And so a 4.0 with a more rigorous curriculum is going to mean more than a 4.0 with an easy to moderate curriculum. And there may be reasons why you chose those classes that are very valid for you. It's important to work with your quad counselor to articulate that in the extra information section in the common application. I mean, goodness, COVID happened, online learning. We were all struggling during that season. And there may be some very legitimate learning differences that you have or strategies that you were advised to undertake at that time. So it's important to just have the why spelled out.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think also if you are at a school that has APs and has high academic rigor, you're only taking a couple honors classes, but everything else is on par. There's still chances for you to get into an Ivy League. You don't need to completely write it off. You can make a lot of different things work there. Let's see. So what about how do jobs factor in versus clubs and activities? Are they viewed equally? Like Jennifer, you talked about having to work a job while you were in high school. Are colleges okay with you only doing maybe one activity because you also have to work a job or take care of a family member or siblings after school instead of having time to do that?
Right, exactly. I think that that's something that you work to explain in your narrative. And if you can use that experience to show an impact in your own personal development, in your academic focus, in your career direction, that could be really powerful. Some of my pre-med students right now are going and working as pharmacy technicians this summer. I don't know about your local pharmacies, but mine have had to shorten hours, have had longer wait lines because they're having trouble finding staff. And so this student was just very enterprising and thought, well, why don't I do that? I said, that's a great idea. You're going to get you're going to get excellent practical experience and training. And you're also going to get a window into the snapshot of how does insurance work? And why do certain plans carry higher copays, lower copays? You're going to get this whole exposure that you can't even see right now. That's going to help us work on an independent research project for you next year. So by all means, yes, go for it. And I think it's just important to have it as part of your narrative. So it's not like a standalone thing. Well, I was a summer camp counselor, or I was a this, or I did that, and kind of set it off to the side. You have to dive into that experience for material to use in your application.
Great. Right. Let's see. I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Oh, there is one thing. I think this will pertain to some of the questions that I'm seeing, Hallie.
Yeah.
So there's the question of what if I have this background, or if I've taken these kinds of courses, or my GPA is here instead of here. And I think it's really important for everyone to know the term attrition and retention at schools. And not every student that starts in the first year class at an Ivy Plus or an Ivy League school is going to graduate from that institution. Students have to stop, transfer, pause their education for any number of reasons. What that does is it creates available spaces for transfer students in the sophomore and junior level of the university. So if you try your best this year and you don't get into your dream school and you go to your next choice on the list and you're not super happy there, you can always be thinking in the back of your mind and evaluating during that time at the first institution, is a transfer plan going to make sense for me? Because there are going to be spaces that are going to be available for you to opt into, whether you go to community college for a few years, if you've done CTE focused coursework, if you haven't had the academic rigor opportunities, if your GPA is a little bit lower than what these schools are looking for, you can go to another institution and beef that up and really build that skill set and be an amazingly competitive applicant in your sophomore or junior year. That might not be the best strategy for you. It's definitely not the best strategy for everyone, but I'm just putting it out there as another option for you to think about.
Great. Yeah, I think that that is very helpful. We do have quite a few questions about that. Something else I'm seeing quite a bit here is students who are international students and wondering what that process looks like. How do how do A levels compare to APs, or how do you set yourself up for success for standardized tests, or just the application in general when you're being compared against students who have grown up and are from US high schools? And I'm not sure, Jennifer or Arianna, how much you both know about that, and we can definitely refer you all for some other sources of information here. But if either of you kind of have a general idea of things and want to share that, that'd be great.
I would say in this case, taking an SAT or ACT may help because it's more standardized and it will show as far as how you may handle the standardized rigor. But also the school will also have transcripts and things of that nature that can also establish and show what type of classwork you took, maybe what courses were available to you. Again, maybe some things that Jennifer mentioned as well, taking different, I don't know if courses are available everywhere or if tests are available everywhere, APs or things of that nature that can, again, just show that you understand or you have expert competency in these particular areas that could also help establish your rigor for that particular school or subject.
Yeah, definitely. And Quad has a great blog post exactly on this topic on our website. So maybe that's a resource that people could look into as well for more specific guidance for each school. But you do want to you're doing either the TOEFL or the IELTS or whatever your testing is that is going to demonstrate your English proficiency. But when I was on AdComs and we were looking at international student applications, the question that almost always came up in the room was, are they just going to hang out with all the other students that are from their country? Are they going to be part of the community? Are they going to be able to follow coursework in English if the language of instruction in their high school was not English? So in addition to just the scores, I think it's really, really beneficial to you to seek out opportunities to engage in English language coursework that is graded through summer programs or different kinds of online vehicles. Do an advanced research project. Quad has a research institute that we've come out with and have developed that can help sophomores and juniors pursue an independent research project under the guidance of a mentor in your field, where you show that you have, and it's a deliverable, right? You end up with a paper. And so there's the written English piece of the puzzle. If English is not your native language, if English is not the language of instruction in your school, that you need to definitely work to address that unasked question that's always going to be there by saying, here's the 20-page research paper that I did on blah, blah, and I interviewed these 10 doctors to find out. Okay, well, then everybody knows you're going to be fine in the college course. And that holds true, obviously, not just for Ivy schools, but for any school that you're applying to. But we do, on that blog post, there are like, it's very comprehensive by each university in the Ivy League and what they're looking for in terms of international applicants. And then there will be staff at the admissions office who are specifically tasked with working with international students. They'll be coming through the fairs in your country. You should go to those fairs and ask your questions in person. Don't be shy about doing that and taking advantage of those opportunities. And if you don't have the chance to attend or meet, attend a virtual session, reach out to get your questions answered directly by the school.
That's great advice. Thank you. So we have exceeded our time today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. If we didn't get to your question, if you have other questions, if you're interested in working with Quad, please reach out on our website. You can fill out a form. You can schedule a free consultation with our team. You can send us an email, let us know how we can help you. We'll also, like I said earlier, send out an email probably on Monday with a recording of this presentation. And I want to thank both Jennifer and Arianna for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you both. I know I learned a lot, and I hope everyone joining us did as well. I hope everyone has a great rest of their Saturday.
Thank you, you all as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.